Hello there, and welcome to Sleepy Galaxy Channel. Tonight we are going to travel a very long way from your bed all the way out to the last of the great planets, the far blue world named Neptune. And we are going to ask a question that sounds simple and turns out to be one of the loveliest riddles in the whole sky. What is hiding beneath Neptune's clouds? And here is the paradox that we will hold in our hands the way you might hold a smooth, cool stone, turning it over slowly. Neptune is the most visible blue in all the solar system, a planet so richly, deeply colored that even a small telescope shows it as a single sapphire bead. And yet, of all the planets, it may be the one whose true face we have seen the least. It is bright, and it is hidden. It is right there, painted across the dark, and it is almost entirely secret. We can look straight at it and still not know what lies below that painted surface. That is the gentle contradiction we will sink into tonight, the way you might sink into a warm pool at dusk, feeling the water close tenderly over your ears. We are going to explore this in 4 slow movements, and I will tell you what they are now, so that your mind knows it has nowhere it must rush to. First, we will look at the clouds themselves, the top layer, the part that faces the stars, and we will ask what they are made of and why they move the way they do. Second, we will descend beneath them into the thickening air, where the light fades and the pressure rises, and we will feel that world grow deeper and stranger. Third, we will go all the way down into the hidden ocean and the buried heart, into the place no eye has ever seen. And fourth, we will drift back out to the edges, to the moons and the rings and the great dark distance, and we will let ourselves feel how far away all of this is, and how it asks nothing of us at all. If you are enjoying these hushed journeys, a like or a subscribe helps the channel reach others who are also lying awake, others who are staring at the ceiling tonight, wishing for a hand to lead them down into sleep. But none of that is anything you need to do now. None of this is anything you need to hold on to. You do not need to remember a single fact. You do not need to follow the path. You can let the words wash over you and dissolve, like blue veils parting one after another as you sink. Settle in. Let your shoulders ease down, away from your ears. Let the weight of your body be received by the bed beneath you. Let your breath slow all on its own, without you doing anything to it. Let's begin. Let us start at the very top, at the outermost skin of the planet, where Neptune meets the emptiness. When you picture Neptune in your mind, you probably see that famous portrait, the smooth blue circle with a few pale streaks and one dark oval bruise. And that image is real, but it is also only the surface of the surface. What you are seeing there is not solid ground, and it is not a sea. It is the top of a sky. It is the highest layer of an atmosphere that goes down and down for thousands of miles before it thickens into anything you could call a floor. So when we speak of Neptune's clouds, we are speaking of the roof of an enormous house of air, a house whose lower rooms no one has ever entered. And the roof is blue for a reason so simple and so lovely that it is worth resting on for a moment. The air of Neptune is mostly hydrogen and helium, the 2 lightest and most ancient elements, the same 2 that filled the early universe, and mixed in with them is a small breath of methane. Methane has a serene habit. It drinks in red light. When sunlight, dim and thin at that distance, filters down into Neptune's air, the methane swallows the reds and the oranges and lets the blues escape back out to space. So the color you see is the color of what the planet refused to keep. Neptune is blue because it gives the blue away. There is something tender in that, when you think of it as you lie here. The planet keeps the warm colors and returns the cool ones to the dark, and that returned blue is all we have ever seen of it, a whisper of light that traveled billions of miles to become, in your imagination, the calm color of rest. And these clouds are not still. Neptune has the fastest winds of any planet we know, winds that race around the world at speeds that would seem impossible, faster than any storm on Earth, faster than sound moves through our own air. And here is the strange part, the part that makes scientists lean closer. Neptune is so far from the Sun that it receives almost no warmth from it, only 1,000th of the sunlight we feel. A light so faint that noon there would look to you like a deep blue evening. By every reasonable expectation, a world that cold and that starved of light should be sluggish, should barely stir. And yet it has the wildest weather in the solar system. Something inside it, some warmth of its own, some heat left over from its making or generated in its depths, drives those tremendous winds. The planet is serenely powering its own storms from within, keeping a private fire that we cannot see, and the racing clouds are the only outward sign of it. But do not let the word storm tighten anything in you. These are not storms that could ever touch you. They are silent from where we stand. Utterly silent, great slow bands of white cloud drawn out into long streaks by winds so smooth and so vast that if you could somehow ride one you would feel almost nothing. Only an endless serene gliding through blue. The first of many veils beginning to part around you. Let that image settle for a moment, the picture of yourself riding a band of cloud without fear, because it will return to us again and again tonight. This idea of moving downward without falling, of descending without harm. And let us follow the descent now, past that first bright roof, and ask what happens when we push a little deeper into Neptune's sky. Because Neptune is not one blue thing, it is layer upon layer, and each layer has its own character, its own serene weather, its own particular hush. Near the very top, where the air is thinnest and coldest, there are high clouds of frozen methane, delicate cirrus streaks of ice crystals catching the pale sunlight. And these are the bright white wisps you sometimes see drawn out above the deeper blue in the old photographs. They float far above the main body of the atmosphere, casting soft shadows down onto the cloud decks below, and those shadows have actually been measured, faint dark lines laid across the blue by clouds hanging some distance overhead, like the shadow of a curtain across a wall in a quiet afternoon room. Below the methane ice, as we sink, the air grows warmer and denser, and the clouds change their substance. There are thought to be clouds of hydrogen sulfide and ammonia deeper down, and lower down, warmer layers where water itself may gather into vapor and mist. So the descent through Neptune is a descent through changing weathers, one veil of cloud after another, each made of a different frozen breath, each parting as you pass through it and closing softly behind you. And I want you to notice something about this that mirrors what your own body is doing right now. Here, in the dark, as you go deeper into Neptune, the pressure rises, the temperature climbs, everything grows slower and thicker and more settled. The frantic winds of the very top give way to a heavier, calmer deep. And as you go deeper into rest, into these late hours, your own systems are doing the same thing. Your heart is slowing. Your breathing is lengthening. The thin, quick, restless surface of your day is giving way to something denser and warmer and more still underneath. You are descending through your own layers tonight, just as we are descending through Neptune's, and there is nothing to fear in either descent. Down is not a dangerous direction here. Down is only deeper into calm. Now, before we go further down, let us pause and drift sideways for a while into the story of how we ever came to know this planet at all, because it is a story that unfolds almost entirely in the dark, and it is a strangely peaceful one. For most of human history, no one knew Neptune was there. It is too low to see with the unaided eye. It hangs at the edge of the solar system, so far out that it takes 165 years to complete a single orbit around the Sun, so far that since its discovery, it has only just, in recent times, returned to the same spot in the sky where it was first found. For thousands of years, then, people looked up at that patch of sky and saw nothing, and Neptune drifted there anyway, unwatched, unnamed, moving through its slow blue centuries without anyone to see it. There is something restful in that thought. The planet did not need to be seen to be real. It kept its clouds and its winds and its buried ocean all through the ages when no human eye had ever found it, asking nothing, waiting for no one. And when it was found at last, it was found not by looking, but by listening to numbers. This is my favorite part of the story, and it is a good one to drift on. In the 1840s, astronomers studying the planet Uranus noticed that it was not quite where it ought to be. Its orbit had a faint wobble, a small persistent wandering off the path that the known forces of the solar system predicted for it. Something was pulling on Uranus, some unseen hand, some hidden mass out in the dark tugging it ever so slightly off course, and two mathematicians, working separately, one in England and one in France, sat down with pencil and paper and asked where such a planet would have to be, and how heavy it would have to be to explain that gentle wandering. They could not see the planet. They only saw its effect, the small pull it exerted on its neighbor, and from that pull alone, from pure calculation, they predicted a location in the sky, a precise place where the unseen world must be hiding. The French astronomer sent his prediction to an observatory, and on the very first night that anyone pointed a telescope at the predicted spot, there it was, a tenuous blue disk, within a single degree of where the mathematics said it would be. A planet found first in the mind, and only afterward in the sky. Imagine that tranquil observatory on that autumn night, the astronomer bending to the eyepiece, the cold air, the faint blue point resolving out of the black exactly where a page of equations had promised it would be. Neptune was discovered by the tenderness of its own gravity, by the way it reached invisibly across the void to touch its neighbor, and, in touching it, gave itself away. For more than a century after that, Neptune remained little more than that dim blue dot, a smudge of light at the limits of even the best telescopes. We knew its size, roughly, and its distance, and the length of its slow year, and almost nothing else. We could not see its clouds. We could not see its winds. It was a real place that remained, for lifetimes, a rumor. And then, in the summer of 1989, one lonely traveler arrived. A single spacecraft, small and patient, having already journeyed for 12 years across the solar system, past Jupiter and Saturn and Uranus, came at last to Neptune, the final world on its long itinerary. It swept past the blue planet just once, close over the northern clouds, gathering everything it could in the brief hours of encounter. And then it flew onward into the outer dark, never to return, never to be followed. Almost everything we know about Neptune's face, every detailed image, every measurement of those racing winds, every glimpse of the great dark storm, comes from that single passing visit, that one afternoon of attention paid to a world that had waited billions of years for company. No spacecraft has been back since. Neptune was seen closely one time, and then left again to its solitude, and it has been turning quietly out there ever since, keeping its deeper secrets, wearing its blue veils, waiting with an endless, serene patience that asks nothing of anyone. So let us return to that lonely traveler, and let us follow it down toward the clouds the way it once did, because in that single encounter, it saw something remarkable, a feature that has since become part of the story of Neptune. When the spacecraft's cameras first resolved the planet into more than a dot, they found a great dark oval riding in the southern clouds, a vast rotating storm as wide as our whole Earth, deep blue-black against the paler blue around it, and it was named, simply and beautifully, the Great Dark Spot. It was an enormous system of swirling air, a place where the atmosphere turned in a slow, immense wheel, and above it hung bright white clouds of methane ice, companion clouds that formed and dissolved along its edges like drifting snow catching the light. And here is a thing that I find peacefully comforting, and I hope you will too. When telescopes looked again, years later, the Great Dark Spot was gone. It had simply faded away, unwound itself, dissolved back into the ordinary blue. And elsewhere on the planet, new dark spots had appeared, other storms rising in other places. These features are not permanent. They come and they go. They gather, they turn for a while, and they release. Nothing on Neptune is holding on. The great storms themselves are temporary, arising out of the deep blue and returning to it, and there is a lesson in that for a mind lying awake, a mind that has been holding on to the day. Even the largest storm on the largest scale is only passing through. It does not have to be kept. It rises, it turns, it eases, it lets go. And now let us go down past the storms altogether, down beneath every cloud deck, into the part of Neptune that no camera has ever pictured and no eye will ever see, the part that we know only through calculation and inference, the way those two mathematicians first knew the whole planet. As you sink below the last clouds, the atmosphere keeps thickening. The air, which up at the top was thin and cold and quick, grows steadily heavier and hotter, until the very idea of air begins to lose its meaning. The pressure climbs to values that on Earth we can scarcely imagine, thousands of times, then tens of thousands of times, then hundreds of thousands of times the pressure at the bottom of our own atmosphere. And under such crushing weight, the gases stop behaving like gases. There is no sharp surface anywhere, no line where sky ends and sea begins. Instead, the atmosphere simply grows denser and denser and denser, thickening by degrees, until without any boundary at all, it has become a kind of fluid, a warm, dark, dense ocean of the strangest kind. This is what most of Neptune actually is, beneath its thin blue skin of visible cloud. It is not a ball of rock. It is not a ball of gas either, not really. Most of Neptune, by mass, is a deep hot fluid layer, an ocean of water and ammonia and methane, unimaginably deep, unimaginably serene in its lower reaches, warmer than boiling, and yet held so tightly by pressure that it cannot boil, cannot escape, cannot do anything but rest there in the dark, mile below mile below mile. Let yourself float on the surface of that idea for a moment, this hidden ocean, and let me tell you the loveliest strange thing about it. The thing that makes Neptune's interior one of the most wonderful places in the solar system to imagine as you fall asleep. In the deep layers of this ocean, in the enormous heat and the enormous pressure, the methane, which is made of carbon and hydrogen, is thought to be squeezed so hard that it breaks apart, and the carbon within it is pressed together into crystal, into diamond. Deep inside Neptune, scientists believe it may quite literally rain diamonds under conditions we can only recreate for the tiniest flicker of an instant in our laboratories. The carbon separates out and forms tiny gems, and because they are denser than the fluid around them, these diamonds are thought to drift slowly downward, sinking through the hot dark ocean toward the center of the world, a slow, endless fall of precious stones through a sea no light has ever touched. Picture it, if the picture pleases you. Not as anything violent, but as something almost tender, a soundless snow of diamonds settling forever through warm, dark water, each one drifting down and down at its own unhurried pace, never landing, never resting, simply falling on through the deep the way snow falls past a window on a still winter night. There is beauty hidden in the heart of Neptune, real beauty, that no one will ever see with their own eyes, and it is there anyway, falling anyway, asking nothing, needing no witness. And this brings us to something worth resting in, this idea of a place made of water that is not water as you know it. Because the ocean deep inside Neptune is not like the sea you might swim in, not like the cool blue water of a summer coast. It is water pushed into forms that only exist under pressures found nowhere on the surface of the Earth. Scientists have a name for it, a strange and haunting one. They call it superionic water, or sometimes hot black ice. Under the crushing weight of the layers above and the fierce warmth of the interior, water molecules are squeezed until they no longer behave like a liquid or a solid in any ordinary sense. The oxygen atoms lock into a rigid lattice, a kind of solid ice, while the hydrogen flows through it freely like a fluid, half solid and half liquid at once, a substance that is genuinely both and neither. It would be hot enough to glow and dense enough to feel like stone, and it would conduct electricity like a metal, and it fills a great shell around the core of the planet, a hidden layer of something that has no true equivalent anywhere in your daily world. And I tell you this not to unsettle you, but to widen the quiet in your mind, because there is a strange comfort in learning that the universe holds forms of matter so far outside our small experience. The ordinary rules loosen out there. Water can be black and hot and solid and flowing all at once. The world is far stranger and far softer at its extremes than the daytime mind ever suspects, and you are allowed, tonight, to stop insisting that everything be familiar. You can let the strange in. You can let it be beautiful. You can let it carry you. And now I want to simply carry you for a while, because we have descended a long way through fact and depth, and it is time to let go of learning altogether and let yourself be borne along. So imagine, if you will, that you are no longer lying in your bed at all, or rather that your bed has become something buoyant and drifting, a soft raft on a warm and endless sea. Imagine that all the weight has gone out of you. Imagine that you are being carried, slowly, on a current you do not have to steer, through the vast blue body of Neptune, down through veil after veil of tinted cloud. The first veil parts, the high pale mist of methane ice, and it opens around you like a curtain drawn aside by an invisible hand, and you drift on through, and it closes again behind you without a sound. Below it another veil, deeper and bluer, and it too opens as you approach, letting you sink through its cool folds, and closes again above you, so that layer by layer the light dims and the warmth grows, and the world folds you deeper into itself. You are not falling. There is no falling here. You are being lowered, tenderly, the way a hand lowers a small boat onto tranquil water, the way sleep itself lowers you each night if you let it. Down through the racing winds, which do not touch you, which part around you like reeds around a drifting log. Down past the great dark storms, which turn slowly far off to the side, huge and silent and harmless, minding their own vast weather. Down into the warm, dark ocean where the diamonds are falling, and you drift among them, and they drift among you, and none of it weighs anything, and none of it asks anything, and you are carried on and down and deeper into the blue. Stay there a while. There is no hurry to come back. Feel how the deeper you go, the more the noise of the surface falls away. Up at the top there was wind and storm and the quick flicker of changing cloud. But here, carried in the deep, there is only slowness, only warmth, only the endless soft resistance of the fluid holding you as you sink. This is what the interior of Neptune is, mostly. Not drama, not violence. Stillness, an enormous, patient, ancient stillness, held under the clouds for 4.5 billion years, undisturbed by the tiny quick lives on the small blue world so far away. You are allowed to borrow that stillness now. You are allowed to let it fill you. Breathe in slowly, and let the breath reach all the way down, the way the pressure reaches all the way down into Neptune, gentle and total. Breathe out slowly, and let a little more of your weight go, a little more of the day, one more veil parting and closing lightly behind you as you settle. When you are ready, and only when you are ready, let us drift down the last of the way, all the way to the very center, to the buried heart of the planet. Because beneath the deep ocean of superionic water and hidden diamonds, at the innermost core of Neptune, there is thought to be a heart of rock and metal and ice, roughly the size of our whole Earth, held at the exact middle of that immense blue world. Think of that for a moment. A whole Earth's worth of solid material, folded away at the center of Neptune, wrapped in thousands of miles of hot ocean, wrapped in thousands more miles of dense atmosphere, wrapped at last in that thin blue skin of visible cloud. The core is where the planet's private warmth is thought to come from, that mysterious inner heat that drives the racing surface winds, heat left over from the slow gravitational settling of the planet's making, heat that has been leaking outward for billions of years, so slowly, so patiently, that even now Neptune gives off more warmth than it receives from the distant sun. The heart of the planet is warm. Deep beneath all that cold and all that dark, at the very center, there is warmth, quietly radiating outward, keeping the whole world faintly alive. And is that not a fitting thing to carry down into sleep with you, the image of a warm heart held at the center of a vast dark stillness, sending its warmth outward through every layer, asking nothing, simply glowing, simply being. You have such a warmth in you too. Somewhere beneath the cold surface of a long day, beneath the noise and the tiredness, there is a small, steady warmth that has kept you going all this while, and it is still there now, glowing tranquilly at your center as you rest. And it will yet be there in the morning, patient as the heart of Neptune. Now let us rise again, slowly, back up through the layers, back toward the surface and the light, not because we must leave, but because there is more of Neptune to see out at its edges, out where it touches the wider dark, and those edges have their own tenderness. So we drift upward, the veils parting for us in the other direction now, the warm deep giving way to the cool high air, the black giving way to blue, the blue giving way at last to the faint far starlight, and we rise up out of the clouds, and float free above them, and we turn our attention outward, to what surrounds this world in the great emptiness. Because Neptune, far as it is not entirely alone. It travels with a small, peaceful family. It has rings, pale and dark and delicate, so thin and so dim that for a long time no one was sure they were even there. They are not the broad, bright rings of Saturn, blazing and obvious. They are subtle things, narrow bands of dust and dark ice circling the planet in the cold, and some of them are strangely uneven, gathered in places into thicker clumps that were named, fittingly, with words that mean liberty and equality and fellowship, arcs of dust that hang together in the ring, where by all rights they ought to spread out and dissolve, held in place by forces we are still working to fully understand. Faint dark rings turning slowly around a faint blue world at the edge of everything, patient and tranquil and almost invisible, circling and circling through the long centuries with no one to watch them turn. And beyond the rings, Neptune keeps company with its moons, a small gathering of worlds, and one of them is among the strangest and loveliest objects in the whole solar system, and it is worth drifting toward now. Its name is Triton, and it is a world of pale pink and blue ice, and it moves in a way that no other large moon moves. Every other great moon in the solar system circles its planet in the same direction the planet spins, following along, going with the flow of things, born from the same slow disk of material as the planet itself. But Triton goes the other way. It orbits Neptune backward, against the planet's spin, and this single strange fact tells us something remarkable about its past. Triton did not form alongside Neptune. It was born somewhere else, out in the great cold belt of icy worlds beyond the planets, and long ago it wandered too close, and Neptune reached out with its gravity and caught it, and drew it in, and made it a companion. Triton is an adopted world, a captured wanderer, and it has been circling its adopted planet backward ever since, held tenderly in an orbit it never chose, but has come to keep. And it is yet active, even now, even in that terrible cold. Its surface, one of the coldest places in the entire solar system, colder than almost anywhere we know, is nonetheless not dead. When the lonely spacecraft flew past, it saw dark streaks on Triton's pale surface and worked out that they were the marks of geysers, slow plumes of nitrogen erupting faintly from beneath the frozen crust and drifting downwind across the ice. Even at the very edge of the cold, even on a captured moon at the rim of the solar system, something is still stirring, serene moving, still quietly alive. And Triton, being so close, being held in that backward orbit, is slowly spiraling inward, and in some vast, unhurried span of time, far beyond any human reckoning, it may drift close enough to be drawn apart into a bright new ring around Neptune. But that is so far away, so unimaginably distant in time, that it is not a loss to mourn, but only a slow, beautiful becoming. A moon that will one day become a ribbon of light. Nothing is hurried out there. Nothing is forced. Even the endings unfold over spans so long they are practically a kind of peace. Let us pause here and let ourselves feel the scale of all this, because feeling the scale, rightly, is one of the most calming things a mind can do. Neptune is far. It is so far that it is hard to hold the distance in your head, and that is fine. You do not need to hold it. You only need to let it be large around you. The light from the sun, which reaches your window in about 8 minutes, takes more than 4 hours to crawl all the way out to Neptune. The lonely spacecraft that visited it flew for 12 years to get there. If you shrank the sun down to the size of a doorway, and set it at one end of a great field, Neptune would be a small blue marble more than a mile away across the dark grass. It is the outermost of the great planets, the last lamp on the long porch of the solar system, and past it there is mostly emptiness, a vast, thinning dark, scattered with a few small icy worlds, and then the true deep between the stars. And here is the thing I want you to feel about that immensity, the thing that turns it from something frightening into something restful. All that distance, all that dark, all that cold and silence is not against you. It is not waiting to swallow you. It is simply spacious. It is room. It is the enormous low in which everything, including you, is allowed to be small and safe and unbothered. You are one warm, quiet body on one small, warm world, tucked into your bed, wrapped in your own thin blue skin of atmosphere, and all around you and above you, and out past the last planet there, is space enough for every worry to shrink down to its true size, which is very small indeed against 4 hours of sunlight and 12 years of travel, and 4.5 billion years of a planet turning slowly in the dark. Your day does not weigh much out here. Let it be light. Let it drift off you like the outermost veil, parting and floating away into all that generous room. Now let us return to the question we began with, and turn it once more in our hands, because there is a deeper answer waiting inside it, and we can approach it slowly. What is hiding beneath Neptune's clouds? On the surface, the answer is the answer we have already given, layer by layer. Beneath the clouds is more air, and beneath the air is the deep hot ocean, and beneath the ocean is the warm buried heart. But there is another way to hear the question, a truer way, and it is this. What is hiding beneath Neptune's clouds is, in a real sense, the hiding itself. It is the fact that a whole world, larger than 17 Earths in mass, right here in our own solar system, close enough to have been reached by a single small machine, remains almost entirely unseen. We have walked on the moon. We have driven small robots across the red sands of Mars for years. We have flown close to nearly every planet more than once, sent orbiters to circle them, dropped probes into their skies. But Neptune we have visited only that one time, for only a few hours, and never since. Almost everything below its topmost cloud is inference and calculation and careful guessing. A portrait drawn not from sight but from physics, the way the whole planet was first drawn from the wobble of its neighbor. Neptune is the great remaining mystery of the classical solar system, the one that has kept its secrets, and there is something restful in knowing that such mysteries tranquil exist, that not everything has been opened and measured and made ordinary, that out at the edge there is still a blue world holding its deep low close, waiting with infinite patience for whatever slow future will finally come to know it. And I find, lying here in the dark and thinking of it, that this is a tender thing rather than a frustrating one. We do not have to know everything tonight. You do not have to know everything tonight. There are questions that are allowed to stay open, mysteries that are allowed to keep, and the mind does not need to solve them before it rests. In fact, the mind rests better when it releases the need to solve, when it lets the unanswered be simply unanswered, floating there unresolved and unthreatening, the way Neptune floats out there unexplored and unhurried. You can lay down every unfinished thing from your day exactly as it is, unfinished, unsolved, unresolved, and let it drift out into the dark to keep like the secret heart of a distant planet. It will yet be there in the morning if it truly matters, and most of it, you will find, mattered far less than the tired late mind believed. Let the open questions stay open. Let the veils stay drawn. There is peace on the far side of not needing to know. Let us drift once more into the deep story of how this world came to be, because origins are restful things to think about as sleep approaches, the slow gathering of a world out of almost nothing. 4.5 billion years ago, there was no Neptune at all, only a vast slow disk of gas and dust turning around the young sun. A faint cold haze spread thin across an enormous ring of space, and in the outer reaches of that disk, where it was cold enough for water and methane and ammonia to freeze into tiny grains of ice, those grains began, ever so slowly, to drift together. A grain met a grain and stuck. A clump met a clump and grew, over immense spans of time, with a patience beyond anything a human life can hold. The ice and dust gathered itself into larger and larger bodies, and the largest of these began to pull on the others with their growing gravity, sweeping up more and more of the thin cold material around them, until in the far cold outer dark, a great body had assembled itself, a core of rock and ice heavy enough to hold on to gas, and it drew in hydrogen and helium from the fading disk and wrapped itself in an atmosphere, and it became a planet. It became Neptune. There was no drama in it, no sudden moment. It was the slowest possible becoming, a whole world drawn together out of drifting dust across hundreds of millions of years, each tiny grain finding its place, each small addition settling in, until a blue giant turned serenely in the outer dark, where before there had been only haze. And it has been turning there ever since, unhurried, complete, keeping the shape it slowly found. There is something in that slow assembling that the falling asleep mind understands very well. You too are settling, slowly, grain by grain, thought by thought, letting the drifting pieces of yourself gather down into rest, and there is no drama needed, no sudden moment required, only the same patient inward drawing together that made a whole world out of dust. Let us stay a while longer with the winds, because they are so strange and so beautiful that they deserve a slower look, and thinking about them slowly is itself a way of slowing down. On Neptune, near the equator, the winds blow in one direction, against the planet's spin, in enormous smooth streams. Toward the poles they turn and blow the other way, going with the spin, so that the whole atmosphere is organized into great banded currents, wide belts of moving air wrapped around the planet like ribbons around a gift, each ribbon sliding past the next in its own direction, at its own pace. And these winds are not powered the way our winds are, not mostly by sunlight, because there is so little sunlight out there to drive them. They seem to be powered instead from below, by that private inner warmth rising up through the deep, and by the slow turning of the planet organizing everything into bands. So Neptune's weather is, in a sense, self-made. It generates its own great motions from within, needing almost nothing from the distant sun, keeping its own tremendous, serene machinery running in the cold and the dark. And the winds, for all their impossible speed, are not chaotic. They are ordered. They flow in clean, broad streams, layered and banded, more like a set of vast, smooth rivers in the sky than like the tangled, gusty weather we know. Imagine standing, if you could, somewhere in the high blue air of Neptune, not falling, simply held, and watching those enormous ribbons of cloud slide past overhead and underfoot, each one moving in its own direction, all of them silent, all of them smooth, an endless patient river of air flowing around a whole world without beginning and without end. There is a kind of hypnosis in it, in the mere idea of it, those long, smooth bands sliding endlessly past one another in the cold, high quiet, and you can let your mind ride along one of them now, sliding smoothly, going nowhere in particular, carried on and on through the blue. And think, as you ride, of how long a single day is out there, and how long a single year. Neptune spins fairly quickly for such a giant, turning once in about 16 hours, so its days are shorter than ours in some sense, a quick spinning under a slow far sun. But its year, its journey once around that distant sun, takes 165 of our years to complete. 165 years, which means that a person born on the day Neptune was discovered would have had to live 165 years to see the planet return to that same spot in its orbit. And only recently, long after everyone who witnessed the discovery had gone, did Neptune quietly complete that first full circle since we found it. It has only had one birthday, in a sense, in all the time we have known it. Its seasons, each one longer than 4 decades, turn so slowly that a single Neptunian spring lasts longer than most human lives. Imagine a season that outlasts you. Imagine a spring so slow that a child born at its beginning would be old by the time it turned to summer. There is no rushing on Neptune. Nothing out there is in a hurry. Everything moves to a rhythm so vast and so slow that it makes the frantic clock of a human day look like the flickering of a moth, here and gone. And you can borrow that slowness now, the way you borrowed the stillness of the deep. You can let your own inner clock unwind, slow down, stretch out, until this one night feels as long and as gentle and as unhurried as a Neptunian season, with all the time in the world to sink down into it, no minute pressing on the next, no hour demanding anything of you, only the long, slow turning of a peaceful dark. There is another hidden thing beneath Neptune's clouds that we have not yet touched, and it is invisible in a different way, because it is not made of matter at all. Neptune has a magnetic field, a great unseen shape of force wrapped around the planet and reaching far out into space, and it is one of the oddest magnetic fields we have ever found. On Earth, our magnetic field is fairly tidy, running roughly from one pole to the other, aligned not too far from the axis on which the planet spins, so that a compass needle points more or less north. But Neptune's magnetic field is tilted far over, leaning at a steep angle away from the planet's spin axis, and stranger still, it is not centered on the middle of the planet at all. It is offset, pushed off to one side, as though the source of it were not the core, but some layer higher up and lopsided. And this is actually one of our best clues to that hidden ocean we drifted through earlier, the deep shell of superionic water, because a magnetic field is generated by the slow churning of an electrically conducting fluid, and that strange conducting ocean, that hot black flowing ice, is exactly the kind of thing that could generate exactly this kind of tilted, offset field. So the invisible shape of force around Neptune is, in a way, the deep ocean writing its signature out across space, telling us in the only language it has that it is there, churning slowly in the dark, even though we will never see it. The field is the ocean's whisper, reaching out past the clouds, the way the planet's gravity once whispered its whole existence to the mathematicians. Neptune keeps giving itself away in these low outward signals, these tender reachings, even as it keeps its body hidden. And there is something to love in that, a world that cannot help but leave gentle traces of its inner life across the dark, the way a sleeping person cannot help but breathe, cannot help but let the faint rhythm of their deep hidden life show softly at the surface. Let us drift back out to Triton once more, the captured moon, because there is more tenderness in its story than we have yet drawn out, and it is a good place to rest the mind. Triton, remember, was not born with Neptune. It came from far away, from the cold belt of small icy worlds out beyond the planets, a wanderer that once traveled alone through the outer dark, and at some point, in the deep past, it drifted close to Neptune, and instead of swinging past and continuing on its lonely way forever, it was caught, drawn in, gathered into orbit, given a home. Think of what that capture must have meant if a world could feel such things. To have wandered alone through the immense cold, unattached, belonging to nothing, and then to be drawn gently into the keeping of something vast and warm and steady, and to circle it ever after, no longer alone, held. And Triton kept something of its old wandering nature, that backward orbit, that memory of having come from elsewhere, and Neptune did not force it to forget or to fall into line. It simply holds it, backward orbit and all, exactly as it is. A wanderer, allowed to remain a little bit a wanderer, even while being wholly held. There is a picture in that for a restful mind. You do not have to become something other than what you are in order to be held by the night. You can bring all your strangeness, all your old wandering, all your ways of moving that do not match the general flow, and the dark will simply take you in, backward orbit and all, and hold you steady, and let you rest exactly as you are. You are allowed to be caught and kept without being changed. You are allowed to belong to this night without having to become tidy first. Let us think now about the color once more, that famous deep blue, because there is a small mystery in it that deepens the wonder and softens the mind. Neptune's near twin, the planet Uranus, is made of very nearly the same things, the same hydrogen and helium, the same breath of methane that drinks the red light, and yet Uranus is a paler, milder color, a soft blue-green, almost a faded aquamarine, while Neptune is a richer, deeper, more saturated blue. Two worlds so alike in their ingredients, and yet one is vivid and one is pale. For a long time this was a small puzzle, and the current understanding is a tender one. It seems that Uranus has a thicker, more sluggish layer of haze high in its atmosphere, a kind of pale veil of tiny particles that mutes and lightens its color, softening the blue toward white. Neptune, more active, with its churning inner warmth and its restless weather, keeps that haze layer thinner, letting the deeper blue show through more purely. So Neptune is more deeply blue in part because it is more alive inside, because its inner warmth keeps stirring the air and clearing the veil, letting the true color come through. Its beauty and its restlessness are the same thing, seen from outside. And is that not a lovely idea to rest on? That the deepest color comes from the deepest inner warmth, that what we see as the loveliest blue in the sky is the outward sign of a world peacefully alive at its core. When you look at Neptune, or imagine it, that rich blue you picture is not a dead paint. It is a living color, stirred up from within, the visible edge of a warm and moving interior. It is the surface of something alive, showing you, in the only way it can across all that distance, that it is warm inside. And now, having risen and looked outward and thought about color and field and moon, let us allow ourselves one more slow descent, because the descent is the heart of tonight, the recurring path we keep coming back to, down through the blue veils into the deep. So once more, let the top of the atmosphere open around you. Let the high, thin methane haze part, the first veil, cool and pale, drawing aside without a sound, and let yourself sink through into the blue beneath. Feel the light dim by one soft degree. Let the second veil approach, deeper and richer, and let it open too, folding aside as you pass, closing tenderly above you, so that a little more of the outer world is sealed away behind you, and a little more of the deep is opened below. Down through the level where the winds run in their smooth-banded rivers, and they part around you, and you drift on down. Down through the level where the great dark storms turn slowly, far off, harmless, minding their own vast weather, and they let you pass. Down through the level where the clouds change from methane ice to other frozen breaths, hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, and each one opens its pale curtain and closes it again behind you as you sink. And with each veil, notice something of the surface leaves you. The first veil takes the noise of the day. The second takes the ache in your shoulders. The third takes the racing of your thoughts. The fourth takes the last thin edge of wakefulness, drawing it gently aside, and you drift on down into the warm, dark deep, where nothing is required of you, where the diamonds fall slowly through the endless sea, where the warm heart glows patiently at the center of everything, and you are carried, and you are held, and you are allowed, at last, to rest. Let us stay in the deep for a while, and let me tell you more about that hidden ocean, because the more you understand it, the more restful it becomes, and there is no rush to leave it. When we say Neptune is an ice giant, we do not mean it is cold and frozen inside, the way the word ice might make you picture. In the language of the people who study these worlds, the ices are the substances that were frozen when the planet first gathered, water and methane and ammonia. But deep inside the planet, those substances are not frozen at all now. They are hot. They are dense. They are pressed into that strange fluid state we spoke of, warmer than boiling, held under such enormous pressure that they cannot escape into gas, cannot freeze into ordinary solid, but exist in between, in forms that have no comfortable name. So the interior of an ice giant is a warm, dark, dense sea of the strangest water in the universe, glowing faintly with its own heat, thick as syrup in its deepest layers, churning so slowly that a single turn of its great currents might take longer than a human civilization lasts. It is the opposite of a frozen place. It is a warm place, a deep warm place, held so tightly by pressure and so far from any light that it simply sits there, hot and dark and still, mile below mile, keeping its heat, keeping its secrets, keeping the slow diamonds falling through it forever. And when I imagine sinking into it, I do not imagine cold at all. I imagine warmth closing over me, the way warm water closes over you when you lower yourself into a bath at the end of a long day. That first soft shock of heat, and then the sinking, the letting go, the weight leaving the limbs, the warmth reaching in. That is the true feeling of Neptune's deep, not the cold of its far distance, but the warmth of its hidden heart. And you can carry that warmth down into sleep with you, the warmth beneath the cold, the heat held safe at the center of the dark. And let us think, softly, about the timescales down there, because they are the most peaceful thing of all. The currents in Neptune's deep ocean, if they move at all in the way we imagine, move with a slowness beyond human patience. The heat leaking out of the core has been leaking for 4.5 billion years and will go on leaking for billions more. The diamonds, if they fall, have been falling since before there was life on Earth, and will serene be falling long after. Nothing down there has ever been hurried. Nothing down there has ever been late. There are no deadlines in the heart of Neptune, no schedules, no appointments, no clocks. There is only the slow leak of ancient warmth, the slow fall of gathered stone, the slow turn of the deep dark sea. all of it unfolding across spans of time so vast that a human life, with all its urgency, would pass unnoticed. A single flicker, gone before the current had moved a hair's breadth. And rather than making you feel small in a frightening way, let that make you feel released. All the urgency of your day, all the things that felt as though they could not wait, all the clocks that pressed on you, they do not reach here. In the deep of Neptune, there is no such thing as too late. There is no such thing as running out of time. There is only the slow, patient, endless unfolding of a warm, dark world that has all the time there is and is in no hurry to use it. Borrow that. Let your own urgency dissolve into that vast, slow patience. There is nothing you need to hurry toward tonight. There is nothing you are late for. There is only the deep, and the warmth, and the slow, and the long, long dark that asks nothing of you, but that you rest in it. Let us rise once more, slowly, and think about what it would be like to actually travel there, to make the long journey out to Neptune, because the journey itself is a restful thing to imagine. All those years of peaceful gliding through the dark. When that lonely spacecraft set out, it did not fly in a straight line. It could not. To reach a world so far away, it borrowed speed from the giant planets along the way, swinging close past each one and using their gravity to fling itself faster and farther out. A slow, patient pinball through the outer solar system. Past Jupiter first, the great striped giant, gathering speed, then on to Saturn and its rings, gathering more. Then the long, serene cruise to Uranus, years of nothing but the slow turning of the stars, the craft asleep in a sense between encounters, dreaming its way outward. And then at last the final long haul to Neptune, the outermost stop, more than a decade after leaving home. Imagine those long, silent cruises between the planets, years at a time with nothing to do but drift. The sun shrinking behind to a bright star, the dark deepening ahead. The small craft gliding on and on through the emptiness with the patience of something that has all the time in the world. There is no struggle in that kind of travel, no strain, only the long coast, the slow fall through space along a curving path laid down years before. Everything already decided, nothing left to do but drift and arrive. And you are on such a journey now, in your own way, coasting through the dark of the night toward the morning, everything already in motion, nothing left for you to steer, only the long, quiet glide to make, letting the hours carry you the way the years carried that small craft outward, arriving, in the end, exactly where you are meant to be. And when it arrived, in those few hours of encounter, what a homecoming of information it sent back across all that distance. Every picture it took had to be turned into a dim radio whisper and sent back toward Earth at the speed of light. And even at the speed of light, those whispers took more than 4 hours to reach us, crawling across the enormous gap, arriving at last at great listening dishes on the far side of the world, so faint by the time they got here that catching them at all was a kind of miracle. Picture the antennas turned up to the dark, listening for a signal weaker than almost anything. A murmur from a machine 4 billion miles away, and slowly, patiently, gathering that murmur out of the noise, line by line, until an image of Neptune's clouds assembled itself on a screen. The first close portrait of the last planet, built out of the faintest possible whisper reaching across the widest possible dark. There is something almost tender in that, in how carefully we listened, in how far the small voice traveled, in how gently it was caught. And once the encounter was done, the craft flew on, out past Neptune, out past the last of the planets, into the true deep beyond. And it is still going now, tranquil, traveling outward, carrying its small record of where it came from, drifting forever into the dark between the stars, at peace, unhurried, going on and on into the great hushed, with nothing behind it, and nothing ahead but the long serene emptiness it was always meant to enter. Let us come back to the clouds one final way and think about what the weather would actually look like if you could stand somewhere within it, floating in the high blue air, watching. Above you, the pale wisps of methane ice would drift in the highest reaches, catching the pale far sunlight, casting their thin shadows down onto the deeper decks below, moving in the smooth banded streams of that self-made wind. Around you, the blue would deepen in every direction, not the blue of a single sky, but the blue of an entire world made of sky, above and below and to every side, blue without floor and blue without ceiling, blue going down forever beneath you, and blue going up forever above. There would be no ground to fall to and no roof to rise against, only the endless tinted air, and you suspended within it, held by nothing, needing nothing, drifting in the middle of a blue that has no edge. And the light would be strange and lovely, a deep, dim blue twilight even at the height of the day. The far sun no more than a very bright star, too small to warm you, casting a pale and tender light through the endless air, so that everything would be softened, shadowless, hushed, bathed in a blue evening that never becomes night and never becomes morning, a permanent gentle dusk wrapped around a whole world. Imagine resting in that. Imagine floating in that endless blue dusk. No floor, no ceiling, no hurry, no cold, only the soft tinted twilight in every direction, and the smooth, slow bands of cloud drifting past. And you among them, weightless, quiet, carried. One more drifting thing in a world made entirely of drifting. That is the top of Neptune, the part that faces us, the blue we see. And beneath it, all the deep we have traveled, the ocean and the diamonds and the warm hidden heart, a world of pure blue evening over a warm, dark, endless sea. A world made, from top to bottom, of exactly the things a tired mind longs for at the end of a day. And I want to gather now, lightly, the strange forms of matter we have met tonight, because there is a comfort in remembering how much stranger and softer the universe is at its edges than the daytime mind believes. We have met air so thin and cold at the top that it freezes into delicate ice. We have met air so thick and warm below that it stops being air at all and becomes a sea. We have met water that is not liquid and not solid, but both at once, hot and black and flowing, conducting its slow electric whisper out into space. We have met carbon squeezed into falling diamonds, drifting endlessly through the dark. We have met a heart of rock as large as our whole world, wrapped in thousands of miles of sea. We have met a magnetic shape tilted and offset, the signature of a hidden ocean writing itself across the void. And none of it, not one of these strange things, is frightening once you understand it. Every one of them is only matter finding a new way to be, under conditions we do not meet in our small, warm daily lives. And every one of them is, in its own way, beautiful. The universe is not harsh at its extremes. It is inventive. It is generous with forms. It keeps finding new ways for things to exist, new states, new textures, new kinds of warmth and cold and light, and all of it unfolds out there quietly, endlessly, whether or not anyone is watching, whether or not anyone will ever understand. There is room in such a universe for every strange thing, including you, including whatever unusual shape your own tired mind has taken tonight. You fit. You belong. You are one more of the universe's strange and beautiful forms, resting now in your own particular way, and that is exactly as it should be. Let us return to the two mathematicians for a moment, and to the tender way this planet was first found, because it is worth sitting with a little longer as the mind grows heavier. Think of what it means that a whole world was discovered by pure thought before anyone ever saw it. It means that Neptune reached out, all unknowing, across billions of miles and touched its neighbor Uranus with the faint pull of its gravity. And that touch was so gentle and so persistent that clever, patient people, watching Uranus wander ever so slightly off its expected path, were able to feel Neptune's presence through it. The way you might feel someone enter a dark room behind you, not by seeing them, but by the low change in the air. Neptune's gravity is a kind of tranquil reaching, an invisible tenderness that stretches out across the void and holds its moons and shapes its rings, and once, long before we ever saw its face, tugged so softly on a distant planet that we knew it was there. And gravity is like that everywhere. It is the gentlest and most patient of all the forces, never sudden, never violent, only a constant, soft pull. Holding the moons to their planets, and the planets to their sun, and the sun to its galaxy. An endless hushed embrace running through all of space, holding everything to everything else. Right now, gravity is holding you too, tenderly, to your bed, to the earth, drawing you down into the mattress with the same patient tenderness that holds Triton to Neptune and Neptune to the sun. You are being held by the same force that reaches across billions of miles. You are cradled in the same great embrace that shapes the whole solar system. Let it hold you. Let it draw you down. There is nothing to resist. The oldest and gentlest force in the universe is asking you, softly, to sink. And you are allowed to say yes. And let us think, one more time, of Triton's slow geysers. Because they are such a peaceful miracle, and such a peaceful thing to picture. On the surface of that captured moon, one of the coldest surfaces anywhere, where the temperature drops to unimaginable depths of cold, there are nonetheless faint plumes of nitrogen that rise slowly from beneath the frozen crust and drift downwind across the pale ice, leaving dark streaks that the lonely spacecraft photographed and puzzled over. Something warm enough, deep enough, is still stirring beneath that frozen surface to push those slow plumes upward, a tenuous interactivity persisting even at the very rim of the cold. And I find that the most reassuring image of all, somehow, that even in the coldest, farthest, most forgotten place we have visited, something is yet stirring, even now faintly alive, still quietly at work beneath the frozen surface. The cold does not win, not entirely, not even there. There is always some small warmth persisting underneath, some slow plume still rising, some faint sign of an inner life that the cold cannot quite reach. And so it is with you, on the coldest and most tired of nights, when the surface of you feels frozen and far away. Underneath, something warm is serene moving. Underneath, the slow plumes still rise. The deep inner life of you goes on, dim and patient and warm, beneath whatever cold has settled on the surface, and it will tranquil be there in the morning, quietly at work, having watched over you all through the dark. You do not have to keep it going. It keeps itself. Let the surface freeze into stillness if it wants to. The warmth beneath will hold. Let us drift now into a slower, wider thought about how Neptune sits at the edge of things and what lies just past it, because the edge of the solar system is a peaceful country to wander in as sleep gathers. Beyond Neptune, the great planet's end. There are no more giants past it, no more vast blue worlds. Instead, there begins a broad, thin, scattered belt of small icy bodies, drifting far apart in the deep cold, tumbling slowly through the dark on their long, slow orbits. Worlds of ice and rock too small to be counted among the great planets, each one turning serenely on its own path with vast empty distances between them. This is the belt that Triton came from, long ago, before Neptune caught it, and it stretches out and out, growing ever thinner, ever colder, ever more sparse. The little icy worlds spread farther and farther apart, until at last even they fade away, and there is only the true deep, the enormous emptiness between our sun and its nearest neighbors, a gulf so wide that light itself takes years to cross it. And Neptune stands as the last great sentinel before all that emptiness, the final large lamp on the porch, beyond which the solar system thins out into scattered ice and then into nothing but dark and distance. There is something serene in being the last of something, the outermost, the one that faces the great quiet. Neptune does not seem troubled by the emptiness beyond it. It simply turns there, at the edge, blue and patient, keeping its clouds and its ocean and its warm hidden heart, facing the vast dark without fear. Because the vast dark is not an enemy, only a neighbor, only the wide faint room in which the whole small warm bright huddle of the solar system rests. And you, tonight, are facing your own edge, the edge of waking, the border between the lit warm day and the vast dark quiet of sleep, and you can face it the way Neptune faces the emptiness beyond it, without fear, without troubling, simply turning toward it, blue and patient and warm, letting the great low come. And past that edge, in the true deep between the stars, the cold is real, and the distances are beyond imagining. And I want to reframe that for you gently, because the space between the stars can sound like the loneliest and coldest idea there is, and it does not have to be. Think of it instead as the largest and softest low that exists. In the deep between the stars there is almost nothing, only a whisper of scattered atoms, a pale drift of dust, the passing light of distant suns. It is the emptiest place, and so it is also the most peaceful, the most undisturbed, the most perfectly at rest. Nothing crowds you there, nothing presses on you there. There are no demands in the space between the stars, no noise, no hurry, no wait. It is pure room, pure hushed, pure rest, spread out across distances so vast that the mind lets go of counting and simply floats. And that same great quiet touches your room, tonight, reaches down through the thin blue skin of our own atmosphere and settles lightly over your bed, the same enormous restful emptiness that fills the space between the stars, come to keep you company in the dark. You are not separate from it. The serene of the deep space between the stars and the quiet of your darkened room are the same tranquil. One continuous stillness reaching from your pillow all the way out past Neptune and on into the endless dark, and you are held within it, a small warm point of rest inside the largest peace there is. Let us come back in from that great distance, back toward the blue world itself, and let me tell you about the seasons of Neptune once more slowly. Because they are so long and so unhurried that merely following them is a kind of rest. Because Neptune is tilted on its axis, much as the Earth is, it has seasons, summers and winters, springs and autumns, as its two poles lean toward and away from the distant sun through the long march of its orbit. but where our seasons turn over in a matter of months. Quick and familiar. Neptune's seasons each last more than 40 years. 40 years of slowly deepening summer in one hemisphere, while the other sinks through 40 years of slowly deepening winter. And astronomers, watching Neptune patiently across the decades with their telescopes, have actually seen the planet slowly brighten in one hemisphere as its long summer came on, the clouds shifting, the light changing, over spans of years. A season so slow that to witness even part of its turning took a good portion of a human career. Imagine a summer that lasts longer than a childhood, longer than a marriage, longer than most of the working years of a life. Imagine the utter slowness of a world where the light takes 40 years to lean fully from one pole to the other, where nothing about the year is ever sudden, where every change comes so gradually that you could watch it your whole life and see only a fraction of a single turning. There is no jolt in such a world, no abruptness, no shock of change. Everything eases from one state to the next across decades so slowly that the change is barely a change at all, only a long, long, tender leaning of the light. And you can let your own night ease like that now, without any jolt, without any sudden crossing, only a long, slow, tender leaning from waking toward sleep, so gradual that you will not feel the moment you cross over, only the slow deepening, like a Neptunian summer coming on, 40 years of light folded down into one soft hour of sinking. And let me return us to the diamonds, the falling diamonds in the deep, because it is the loveliest image tonight, and it deserves to be visited more than once, the way a beautiful thought is worth returning to as you drift. Deep in the warm, dark ocean, the carbon presses together into crystal, and the crystals, heavier than the fluid around them, begin their long, slow fall toward the center of the world. And they do not fall the way things fall on Earth, quick and sharp and done. They fall slowly, so slowly, through a fluid thick and warm, sinking by the smallest degrees, drifting downward through the endless dark at a pace no eye could even perceive, taking spans of time we cannot picture to move even a little way, a soundless, endless, unhurried fall of gems through a warm black sea, each one turning slowly as it sinks, each one alone in the vast dark, and yet part of a slow drift of countless others, all of them falling together through the deep, never landing, never finished, simply falling on and on and on through the heart of Neptune, since before the Earth was old. And you are falling like that too, tonight, slowly, so slowly, sinking by the smallest degrees down through the warm dark of your own tiredness, drifting downward at a pace you cannot even perceive, turning slowly as you sink, part of the great slow drift of everything that rests, never jolting, never finished, simply falling on and on into sleep, the way the diamonds fall on and on into the deep. Let yourself be one of them. Let yourself sink like a slow gem through the warm dark, unhurried, unafraid, held by the pressure of the whole soft night above you, falling gently toward the warm heart at the center of everything. Let us think, softly, about the name of this world, because names carry their own serene weight, and this one was well chosen. Neptune was named for the ancient god of the sea, the ruler of the deep waters, and the name was given long before anyone knew there was truly an ocean hidden inside the planet, given simply for the color, for that deep sea blue that shone through the early telescopes. And yet how fitting it turned out to be, how the name reached ahead of the knowledge, because beneath those clouds there really is a sea, a vast hidden ocean deeper and stranger than any water on Earth, so that the world named for the god of the sea turned out, against all expectation, to be more truly a sea than anyone imagining the name could have guessed. There is a kind of peaceful poetry in that, a name that told the truth before the truth was known. The way the mathematicians found the planet before the telescope. The way the deep ocean writes its magnetic signature before we ever see it. Neptune keeps confirming itself, keeps turning out to be more than we first knew, keeps rewarding the patient looker with deeper truths folded inside the first simple appearance. And that is a good thing to rest on, the idea that the simple first impression, the deep blue calm we see, is not a lie, but only the outermost layer of a truth that goes down and down, deeper and richer the further you sink, calm all the way to the warm heart. What looks peaceful on the surface really is peaceful all the way down. The blue is not hiding something harsh. The blue is hiding more blue, more depth, more warmth, more quiet, layer after layer of it, all the way to the center. You can trust the calm you see. It goes all the way down. Let us drift back to the whole shape of the planet one more time and hold it entire in the mind, the way you might hold a smooth blue stone in your palm before setting it down for the night. At the very top, the thin high haze of methane ice, catching the faint far light, casting soft shadows, drawn out into pale streaks by the smooth banded winds. Below that, the deepening blue of the main atmosphere, where the great dark storms rise and turn and fade, where the racing winds run their impossible smooth courses, all of it powered from within by the planet's own hidden warmth. Below that, the air thickening past the point of being air, growing dense and hot and dark, becoming without any boundary the strange warm ocean, the deep sea of superionic water and hidden diamonds, glowing faintly with its own heat, churning so slowly its currents outlast civilizations, writing its low magnetic signature out across the dark. And at the very center, wrapped in all of that, the warm heart of rock and metal and ice, as large as our whole world, radiating its ancient warmth outward through every layer, keeping the whole vast planet faintly and patiently alive. That is Neptune, entire, from the pale high ice to the warm buried heart. A calm blue surface over a warm deep sea, over a warm still heart. A whole world built, from top to bottom, out of descent and warmth and quiet, as though it were made to be fallen asleep to. And you have traveled all the way down through it tonight, and all the way back up more than once, and each descent has taken a little more of the day from you, and left a little more calm in its place. Until now, near the end, there is very little of the day left in you at all, only the calm, only the blue, only the slow warm sinking. Let us linger a little longer in the imagined descent, because there is no better place for the mind to rest than in that slow sinking, and we have plenty of unhurried time. So picture yourself once more at the top, floating above the pale high haze, and let go, tenderly, the way you let go of a breath and begin to sink. The first veil, the methane ice, opens around you, cool and pale, and closes above you, and you feel the day's noise leave, drawn off with it into the light behind. You sink on. The blue deepens by a degree, and the second veil approaches, richer and darker, and it too opens and lets you through and folds shut behind, and with it goes the tightness in your jaw. The small held tension you did not even know you were carrying, released now into the blue above. You sink on. The winds run past in their smooth bands and part around you and do not touch you. And the third veil approaches, deeper yet, and opens and closes. and with it goes the last of your listening, the part of you that was still half attending to the room, to the sounds of the house, to the edges of the waking world, all of it drawn softly up and away, sealed off above you as you sink beneath another layer. You sink on, and the great dark storms turn slowly far off to the sides, harmless, minding their own weather, and they let you pass, and the fourth veil approaches, warm now, and dim, and it opens for you like a held breath finally released, and closes behind you, and with it goes the very last thread of the day, the final thin edge of wakefulness, drawn gently up into the blue and gone, so that below the fourth veil there is only the warm dark deep, and the slow diamonds falling, and the warm heart glowing at the center, and you, sinking among them, weightless, low, held, needing nothing, wanting nothing, simply falling on through the warm dark toward rest. And you can stay there. There is nowhere else you need to go. The descent is complete, or as complete as it needs to be, and you are held now in the deep, carried by the warm fluid of the night, surrounded by the slow fall of gentle light, and nothing above you or below you asks anything of you at all. The storms are far away and harmless. The winds are smooth and distant. The cold is all up at the surface, up where you no longer are, and down here there is only warmth, only the deep, patient warmth of a heart that has been glowing for billions of years and will glow for billions more, radiating its ancient tranquil outward through every layer to reach even you, even here, even now. Rest in that warmth. Let it hold you. Let the whole vast blue weight of the planet above you settle you deeper into the deep, lightly, the way a heavy blanket settles you deeper into the bed, pressing you down not harshly, but tenderly, holding you in place, keeping you safe, letting you know that you do not have to hold yourself up any longer, that you can let go entirely, that the deep will keep you, that the warmth will keep you, that the night will keep you, all the way through to the morning. Let us think, in this deep and settled place, about the future, about the slow, patient future in which we might finally return to Neptune and learn what truly lies beneath its clouds, because imagining that future is a peaceful way to drift. There are people, right now, who dream of sending a new spacecraft out to Neptune, one that would not merely fly past in a few hours, but would arrive and stay, slipping into orbit around the blue world, circling it for years, watching its seasons turn, mapping its winds, studying Triton and its slow geysers, listening to the deep magnetic whisper of the hidden ocean over long, patient spans of time. Such a mission would take many years to build, and many more years to arrive, more than a decade of hushed cruising through the dark, so that a person who began the work might not see it reach its destination until their hair had gone gray. It is the kind of undertaking that asks for patience across a generation, a gift sent forward in time, from the people who plan it to the people who will one day receive its findings. And there is something deeply restful in that, in the idea of a patient future slowly gathering itself, of clever, gentle people even now sketching the ships that might one day drift out to that far blue world and finally, tenderly, come to know it. The mystery beneath Neptune's clouds will not stay hidden forever. Slowly, patiently, across the long unfolding years, we will drift back out to it and orbit it and learn its deep secrets, and the not knowing that rests so peacefully tonight will one day soften into knowing, the way not knowing always does, in time if we are patient. But there is no hurry. The planet will keep. The mystery will keep. It has kept for 4.5 billion years, and it can keep a little longer, waiting with its endless serene patience for the slow future to arrive. And you can keep too, tonight, Whatever it is you are waiting for, whatever it is you do not yet know, it will come in time. There is no need to reach for it now. Let it stay out there in the dark, patient as Neptune, and let yourself rest. Let us think about how quiet it must be out there, in orbit around Neptune, in the imagined future, drifting with that patient future ship through the long dark around the blue world. Because the serene of it is a balm. There would be no sound at all, of course, in the emptiness of space. Only the slow, silent turning of the planet below, the blue face rolling past every 16 hours, the pale high clouds streaming in their smooth bands, the great dark storms rising and fading over the months, all of it utterly silent, a vast blue world turning without a whisper in the deep quiet of the outer solar system. And around it, the faint dark rings, turning silently too, the clumped arcs of dust holding their mysterious formations, circling and circling without a sound. And beyond, the pale point of Triton, drifting backward through its captured orbit, its geysers rising silently from the frozen ice. And beyond that, the true dark, the great emptiness, scattered with distant stars, silent, endless, at rest. A whole tranquil system, turning slowly in the silent dark, needing no sound, making no sound, simply being, simply turning, simply at peace. And that great outer peaceful is the peaceful you are sinking into now, the same silence that wraps the blue world and its rings and its captured moon, come down to wrap your room, your bed, your slowing breath, so that you and Neptune are held in the same vast stillness, the same silent turning dark, the same endless peace that fills the space between here and there and on past everything into the deep. Let us return, in this deep and quiet hour, to the very question we began with, and hold it once more, softly, now that we have traveled so far into it. What is hiding beneath Neptune's clouds? We have found so many answers. More air, thickening into sea, a warm dark ocean of the strangest water in the universe, diamonds falling slowly through the deep, a warm heart of rock as large as our world, glowing at the center, a magnetic whisper reaching out across the void, a mystery kept for 4.5 billion years and largely kept secret, seen closely only once, waiting patiently for a slow future to return. But perhaps the truest answer, the one to carry down into sleep, is the simplest. What is hiding beneath Neptune's clouds is peace. A deep, warm, patient, ancient peace held under the blue for longer than there has been life on Earth, undisturbed by all our hurry, unbothered by all our noise, turning slowly in the far dark, asking nothing, needing nothing, simply resting there at the edge of everything, as it always has and always will. And that peace is not so far away as it seems. It is the same peace that is settling over you now, the same warm tenuous, the same slow sinking, the same ancient stillness that has always been there beneath the surface of things, waiting for you to stop reaching, waiting for you to let go, waiting to receive you the way the deep receives the slow falling diamonds. You have found what hides beneath Neptune's clouds. It is the very thing you were looking for tonight. It is rest. And so, as this long journey draws toward its quiet end, let the facts fall away entirely. All of them, the winds and the diamonds and the seasons and the moons, let them drift off like the last thin veils, because you do not need them anymore. They have done their work. They have carried you down here, into the deep, into the warmth, into the low, and now they can go. You do not need to remember a single one of them. You do not need to carry any of it into the morning. Let it all dissolve into the blue, every fact, every image, every word, until there is nothing left but the sinking itself, the warm, slow sinking, and the deep that holds you, and the ancient, patient peace at the center of the far blue world, which is also now the peace at the center of you. There is nothing left to learn. There is nowhere left to go. There is only the deep, and the warmth, and the rest. And you, sinking tenderly into all of it, carried the last of the way down by the whole slow, tender weight of the night. But we have a little time yet, before the very end, and so let us drift once more, unhurried, back through some of the tender things we have found, letting them wash over us one last slow time. Not to learn them, but simply to be soothed by them. The way you might let a familiar piece of music play again as you fall asleep, not listening to the notes, but only floating on them. Remember the color, the deep sea blue, and how it is the color the planet gives away, the color it refuses to keep, sending it back out into the dark, so that all we ever see of Neptune is its generosity, the light it lets go. Remember the winds, impossibly fast and yet impossibly smooth, running in their broad, banded rivers, powered not by the distant sun, but by the planet's own hidden warmth, weather made from within, a world quietly keeping its own fire. Remember the great dark storms, as wide as our whole Earth, that rise and turn, and then, in a few years, simply fade away, unwinding themselves back into the calm, holding on to nothing, teaching us that even the largest thing is only passing through. Remember the deep ocean, warm and dark and strange, the sea that is not water as we know it, glowing faintly with its own ancient heat, churning so slowly that its currents outlast whole civilizations. Remember the diamonds, falling forever through that warm, dark sea, a soundless, endless snow of gems drifting down toward the center of the world, beautiful in the dark, whether or not anyone will ever see. Remember the warm heart at the very center, as large as our whole world, glowing patiently, sending its warmth outward through every layer to keep the whole planet faintly alive. Let all of it wash over you and drift away, one soft image after another, each one carrying a little more of you down into the deep. And remember the moon, Triton, the captured wanderer, held tenderly in its backward orbit, allowed to keep its strangeness, allowed to belong without being changed, its slow geysers still rising faintly from the frozen crust at the very rim of the cold. Proof that something warm goes on stirring even in the farthest, coldest, most forgotten place. Remember the faint dark rings, turning silently, holding their mysterious clumped arcs against all expectation, circling the blue world in the hushed, with no one to watch them turn. Remember the mathematicians, who found the whole planet by pure thought, feeling its gentle gravity reaching invisibly across billions of miles to tug at its neighbor, so that a world was known in the mind before it was ever seen with the eye. Remember the lonely spacecraft, that patient traveler, gliding for 12 years through the dark to spend a single afternoon with the last planet, and then flying on forever into the deep beyond, at peace, unhurried, carrying its small record of home into the endless hushed. Remember the long, long seasons, each one outlasting a human life, the light leaning so slowly from pole to pole that no jolt of change ever comes, only a tender, endless easing from one state to the next. Let all of these drift over you too, and drift away, each one loosening its hold, each one setting you a little freer, a little heavier, a little deeper into the warm dark of rest. And notice, as these images wash through you and dissolve, how little effort any of it takes now. You are not working to imagine them. They are simply arising and fading on their own, the way images do at the edge of sleep, forming softly and drifting off before you can quite hold them, blurring into one another, the blue and the diamonds and the winds and the far quiet all melting together into a single warm, formless drift. This is the place just before sleep, the shallows of it, where the mind loosens its grip on everything, where thoughts stop being thoughts and become only dim colors and slow motions, where you are no longer following anything, only floating, only sinking, only slowly coming apart into the warm dark, the way a cloud comes slowly apart in a serene sky. There is nothing to do here. There is nothing to hold. There is only the last soft dissolving, the last veil thinning to nothing, the last of the day melting off you into the deep, and the warm, patient peace of the far blue world rising up to meet you and take you in. Let us rest a while in that dissolving, in no hurry to move on, because there is a deep sweetness in the shallows just before sleep, and you have earned every moment of it. Feel how your body has grown heavier as we have traveled, how it has sunk down into the bed the way we sank down through the veils, layer by layer, until now it rests fully supported, fully received, not holding itself up at all. Feel how your breath has slowed, all on its own, without your steering it, lengthening the way the atmosphere of Neptune lengthens and thickens as you descend, growing deeper and warmer and more still. Feel how the thoughts of the day, which raced at the surface like the fast high winds, have settled now into the slow banded calm of the deep, moving so slowly that they barely move at all, sliding past one another in broad serene rivers, going nowhere, meaning nothing, simply drifting. You have brought yourself down, tenderly, through every layer, into the warm dark deep of your own tiredness, and here, at last, there is nothing left to do but rest. The journey is over. The blue world turns slowly far away, keeping its warm heart safe in the dark, and you turn slowly here in your bed, keeping your own warm heart safe beneath the surface of sleep. And the two of you, the great blue planet and the small warm dreamer, are held in the very same peace, the very same silence, the very same ancient tender quiet that fills all the space there is. And if any small thought should rise, even now some last flicker of the day, some worry that did not quite dissolve, let it rise like a slow plume from the frozen surface of Triton and drift off downwind across the ice and fade. You do not have to chase it. You do not have to solve it. You do not have to hold it. Let it rise and let it drift and let it fade. The way everything on Neptune rises and drifts and fades, the storms, the seasons, the clouds, all of it passing through, none of it kept, none of it held. There is nothing you need to keep tonight. There is nothing you need to hold. You can let every last thing go, the way the planet lets go of the blue, the way the storms let go of their turning, the way the slow diamonds let go and fall. And in the letting go there is only more peace, more depth, more warmth, more rest, all the way down, all the way to the warm, tranquil heart at the center of the dark. Let us drift, in these last unhurried moments before the close, back to the single most soothing picture of the whole night, and simply hold it, gently, for as long as we like. You, weightless, in the warm dark deep of Neptune, no floor beneath you and no ceiling above, held by the thick warm fluid of the night, and all around you the slow snow of diamonds, falling forever, turning slowly as they sink, catching what little light there is, and giving it back as the faintest glimmer, drifting down past you and with you, and through you toward the warm heart glowing far below. And you are falling too, at the same slow pace, one more drifting thing among the gems, unhurried, unafraid, held on every side by the deep, sinking so slowly that it is barely sinking at all. Only the softest continuous settling, down and down and down, toward warmth, toward stillness, toward rest. There is no bottom you will strike. There is no end you will reach. There is only the endless gentle falling through the warm dark, forever, lightly, the way the diamonds fall, the way sleep takes you when you finally let it. Without a landing, without a jolt, only the slow, sweet endless sinking into the deep. Stay there. Fall there. Rest there. Let the warm dark hold you, and the slow light drift around you, and the ancient, patient heart of the far blue world glow softly up at you from below, welcoming you down, welcoming you home, into the deepest and warmest and most peaceful place there is. And let us hold, one last unhurried time, the whole slow shape of the descent we have made so many times tonight, because there is such rest in simply retracing it. The way you might smooth a familiar blanket with your hand before finally lying still beneath it. First, the pale high haze, the thin veil of methane ice, cool and delicate, catching the last faint light and parting tenderly to let you through. Then the deepening blue, the main body of the sky, where the smooth banded winds run their tranquil rivers and the great dark storms turn far off and harmless, and that veil too opens and closes behind you as you sink. Then, the thickening air, growing warmer and heavier and dimmer, losing by slow degrees its very nature as air, becoming without any boundary the warm dark sea. Then the strange deep ocean itself, the hot black flowing water that is neither solid nor liquid, glowing faintly with its own ancient heat, and the slow snow of diamonds drifting down through it forever. And then, at the very last, the warm heart at the center, as large as our whole world, glowing patiently up at you from below, the destination of the whole long descent, the warm place beneath every layer where the falling finally becomes rest. You have made this journey again and again tonight, and each time it has carried you a little deeper, a little further from the day, a little closer to sleep. And now you are nearly all the way down, nearly all the way home, with only the last soft distance left to drift. So let yourself drift it, the last soft distance, without any effort at all. The veils are almost all behind you now. The surface, with its winds and its storms and its cold, is far above, so far above that you can no longer feel it, no longer hear it, no longer remember quite what it was like. All around you now is only the warm deep, holding you on every side, and the slow light drifting past, and the ancient warmth rising up to meet you, and you are sinking so slowly and so softly that there is no edge to it anywhere, no moment of crossing, no line between waking and sleeping, only the long, tender, continuous settling of a mind, letting go of the day at last. There is nothing left to do. There is nothing left to hold. There is nothing left to know. There is only the warm blue low and the slow sweet sinking and the deep coming up to receive you, and you letting it, finally, completely, drifting down the last of the way into the warm still heart of rest. Tonight has been about the far blue world at the edge of everything, and the deep peaceful it has kept beneath its clouds for 4.5 billion years. Tonight has been about the color it gives away, and the winds it makes from its own hidden warmth, and the storms that rise and turn and fade without holding on to anything. Tonight has been about the warm dark ocean of the strangest water in the universe, and the diamonds falling slowly forever through it, and the warm heart as large as our whole world glowing patiently at the center of the dark. Tonight has been about the captured moon allowed to keep its strangeness, and the pale rings turning silently in the quiet, and the mathematicians who found a whole planet by the tenderness of its own gravity, and the lonely traveler who visited once and then flew on forever into peace. Tonight has been about the long, slow seasons that outlast a life, and the patient future that will one day drift back out to learn what lies hidden, and the great outer silence that is not cold and lonely, but only the largest and softest rest there is. And most of all, tonight has been about you, sinking slowly through all of it, layer by layer, veil by veil, down into the warm, dark deep where nothing is asked of you, where you are held, where you are safe, where you may finally, completely rest. You have traveled so far tonight, and you have arrived exactly where you needed to arrive, which is here, which is now, which is rest. You do not need to do anything more. You do not need to hold anything more. You do not need to know anything more. None of this needs anything from you tonight, not the facts, which have already done their gentle work and drifted away, not the images, which have already carried you down and dissolved, not the far blue world, which turns on perfectly well in the dark without you watching, keeping its warm heart safe, asking nothing. None of it needs you to stay awake for it. None of it needs you to remember it. None of it needs anything from you at all, except that you rest and let go and sink the last of the way down into the deep, warm faint that has been waiting for you all along. And so let the far blue world turn on without you now, keeping its clouds, keeping its ocean, keeping its warm heart glowing in the dark. And let yourself turn lightly towards sleep. Let your body grow heavier still, sinking one more layer down into the bed, received completely, held completely, needing to carry nothing of its own weight anymore. Let your breath grow slower, lengthening on its own, each breath a little deeper than the last, each one a soft veil parting and closing as you sink. Let your thoughts grow slower still, sliding past in their broad, quiet rivers, meaning less and less, drifting off into the warm dark one by one until there are almost none left, until there is almost nothing left but the sinking itself, the warm, slow, endless sinking through the blue toward rest. There is time. There is so much time. You have all the slow, patient time of a Neptunian season, all the endless, unhurried time of the deep. 40 years of light folded down into this one soft hour, and nothing pressing on any of it, nothing hurrying you, nothing waiting for you, only the long, tender drift down into sleep. Take all the time you need. Sink as slowly as you like. The deep will hold you the whole way down. Feel now the warmth again, the warmth beneath the cold. The warm heart at the center of the far blue world, glowing patiently up at you from below, and the small warm heart at the center of you glowing peacefully too. The two of them beating in the same great silence, held in the same great peace. Feel how the cold is all far away, up at the surface, up where you no longer are, and how down here, in the deep, in the warm dark, where you have finally come to rest, there is only warmth, only the deep, patient, ancient warmth of a heart that has glowed for billions of years and will glow for billions more, reaching out through every layer to hold even you, even here, even now. You are warm. You are held. You are deep in the low, deep in the dark, deep in the peace that hides beneath the clouds of the far blue world and beneath the surface of your own long day, and there is nothing left now but to rest in it, fully, completely, letting go of the very last thin thread that holds you to the waking world, and letting the warm deep take you the rest of the way down. When this serene journey ends, there will be another one waiting on the screen. Another slow exploration ready to carry you further down into the dark, and you do not need to reach for it, or choose it, or do anything at all. If you leave the screen as it is, it will begin on its own, softly, another low voice rising to meet you in the hushed, another long tender drift out among the stars, waiting to carry you deeper still. Let it begin on its own. Let it come to you the way sleep comes to you, without effort, without reaching, arriving all by itself while you rest. You do not have to stay awake to catch it. You do not have to do anything but drift. It will be there, waiting in the dark, whenever the deep releases you toward it. One more quiet journey among the endless serene journeys, ready to hold you a while longer in the peaceful dark. And before you go, I will leave one small question drifting in the quiet for you, not to answer now, not to solve, only to carry down with you into sleep like a smooth, cool stone in a pocket. If you could drift down through the blue veils of any world in all the sky and rest in the warm, deep, tranquil at its heart, which world would you choose? And what do you think you would find waiting for you there in the dark? You do not need to answer. You do not need to think about it at all. Let it drift there, unanswered, peaceful. One more open question allowed to stay open, floating in the tranquil beside you as you sink. And if some soft morning you wish to, you might leave your answer in the peaceful below, a small word sent out into the dark to reach others who are also drifting, also sinking, also finding their rest among the stars. But not now. Now there is nothing to do but drift. So let the far blue world turn slowly on at the edge of everything, keeping its warm heart safe in the dark. Let the diamonds fall forever through the deep. Let the long seasons lean their light across the decades. Let the lonely traveler glide on into the endless quiet. And let yourself sink the last of the way down, warmly, completely, held on every side by the deep, carried the final distance by the whole tender weight of the night, past the last veil, into the warm heart of rest, where nothing is asked of you, where nothing waits for you, where there is only warmth, and only peace, all the way down. Rest now. Drift now. Let go now. You are held. You are safe. You are deep in the warm blue quiet, and there is nowhere else you need to be. Sleep well,